is a possibility. And that is our driving force. And we do that through the instrumentality of God's word. We believe that everyone who has come into an encounter with the Spirit of God should be able to experience and live out and manifest God's kind of life, which is the life of excellence. But that is not the case in most situations. And so our vision is to help young people to understand what it takes to, manifest and live God's kind of life in every dimension of their lives. And throughout this year, we've been exploring different areas of our lives, trying to see how we can excel in all the areas of our lives. And today we are talking about how to excel in business, like I said at the beginning. And I have my friend here, Albert. Um, so I'll just quickly introduce him to you, and then he'll take it up from there. So for those who don't know, Albert is a special assistant to the governor of Kaduna State on business, innovation, and technology, where he works to strengthen systems and structures that support the development and implementation of viable policies and programs. He promotes, regulates, and oversees the development of and expansion of businesses, supports innovation, and accelerates tech adoption while building vibrant entrepreneurial and digital ecosystems in collaboration with private stakeholders, development partners, and other public sector actors. At Food for Thought, where he serves as the regional coordinator for West Africa, he works to shape the future of agriculture and builds inclusive, resilient, and sustainable food systems through advocacy, innovation, collaboration, and most importantly, action. Albert is a United Nations Internet Governance Forum Youth Times policymaker. He's one world ambassador and an alumni of the prestigious program like Ginkgo Bioworks and Symbio Africa Fellowship, African Presidential Leadership Program, and the Kashim Ibrahim Fellowship, which he actually emerged the best fellow in the last cohort of Kashim Ibrahim Fellowship Program. He is co-founder of Frontiers SS, which is a science solutions company in Nigeria, and he's excited, and his excitement rather about innovative problem solving as well as their commercial and social benefit pushed him to mentor innovators in programs like the Future Agro Challenge, Global Thought for Food Challenge, Enterprise Development Center's AgroHack Challenge, which is funded by MasterCard Foundation, and the multi-partner Global Food Systems Game Changers Lab that was funded by the Rockefeller Foundation. So if you are with me, that is all about Albert, and I want us to give him a virtual hand clap wherever you are to welcome him. Before he takes over, can I see your virtual hand clap? All right, I can see it coming in now. All right. Thanks, everybody. So, Mr. Albert, welcome one more time. If you can hear me,
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you for the welcome, Doctor.
I bring you up on stage to lead us on the conversation, excelling in business. So, how to excel in business. Thank you very much for joining.
No, you're most welcome. I'm very grateful for the invitation. I hope you can hear me. This is a topic that is very close to my heart as both an individual and a person who has practiced entrepreneurship and business right out of university. For over 10 years now. So I am very passionate about doing business, but not just doing business for the sake of it, but about excelling while we do it. Right. And because excellence is something that God is passionate about, God is interested in. God doesn't just want you to start something and fail or start something and stop halfway. He wants to see you excel at anything you put your hands to do because you are a creation that He has excellently made to exist on earth, right? So I think from my perspective, when we talk about excelling in business, I usually always try to talk to people from multiple perspectives. And the first I want to mention here right now is about even identifying what kind of business or what business to even start with, right? So most times you would find people tell you they are interested in business but do not know what to do or how to go about it. And so because of all of that, lack of knowledge or all of that inability to execute what they have as visions, they never get to start a business in the first place, right? So, but the first point to start this off is what even is a business? So for people based in Nigeria and some other developing countries, particularly in Africa and Asia, when you talk about business, the first thing that comes to our mind is making a product and going to a market to sell it, right? But
Yeah.
that definition right now seems very limiting, given the context of the globalized world we live in, and given the context, excuse me, please, and given the context of the world we are today, right? We are in a very connected, diverse, and very expanding world, and because of that, our definition of what constitutes a business needs to expand as well, right? And so for now, I would just say a business is simply anything that is commercial or that can be commercialized. So when you talk about commercialization, it's simply the exchange of some form of value for some other value, right? And I would expand on that. So on one hand, you could make a product, go to a market, and sell that product. What you are in reality selling isn't really the physical product. What you're selling is what that product can do for the person that buys it. Okay, so if you sell a school bag for a parent who wants to give to their kid to go to school, what you've done is you've sold a way for the child to convey their books to school, right? And in selling that school bag, what you had done is that you had received payment in terms of cash or some other form of value also for that school bag, right?
Yes.
So simply put, that to me, I have come to realize business simply just involves transacting of value from one person to another, preferably in an exchange. And this exchange, in the most ideal cases, should be equal, such that the value I provide to you is equal to the value you provide to me in some way or form, right? But sadly, not every business transaction is equal. I would touch on that sometime later, where we would see that, for instance, I sell that bag to a parent, right? Now, the value that that bag constitutes for that parent is supposed to have a financial representation. And so person A will sell that bag for $20. Person B will sell that same bag for $40. It may be the same exact bag, but so many other factors may be different that would result in the difference in value or financial value for the bag. So it could be that the two persons are selling the bags in two separate locations or two separate
Yeah.
environments where the value of the bag is different. Okay, it could be that it's separate countries. It could be that it's so many factors could come into the determining of the value that you provide as an entrepreneur or as someone who is giving out value in form of a business. Okay, so this is me just trying to set the stage for what even is a business in the first place. So we've
Yeah.
identified it's not just about the physical products, it's about an exchange of value. So if, let's assume, I am Albert Kure, and I I speak four languages, right? And there's a person in a part of Africa who needs to convey something to a group of people in a language that they can understand. And this person reaches out to me and says, Albert, please translate this document for me so that I can reach out to the people in this community. If I in turn then say, okay, for this translation, pay me $50, or for this translation, give me
Yeah.
access to XYZ, I have exchanged value for my translational abilities or skill. So I'm just trying to set the stage to help us understand that business goes beyond physicality, it goes beyond products, it goes beyond just the financials even. That in business transactions, there are times where cash in their naira dollar equivalents are not even exchanged, but something else gets exchanged,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, so I'm now coming down to how do you even identify a business? right? So you want to make money, you want to have some form of financial or economic upward mobility, you want to be independent of an employer, or you want to have the ability to control your own journey and life as it pertains to finances, right? One approach people take is, oh, I want to start a business then. And that in itself is a wonderful thing, but you need to know why you're starting the business and what kind of business to start. So in most cases, you find people start businesses for the wrongest of reason. So
Mm.
my first advice is, please ensure that your why is something that can pull you through the hard times that you would face. I will talk about the kind of hard times that most businesses would face. And you should know that the reason you start the business in the first place is what would keep you motivated and keep you involved despite the challenges, despite the successes. Some people get business successes and forget about the why, and then they lose
Mm.
their way. And they begin to create businesses
Wow.
that are unethical. They begin to um, involve themselves in practices that are detrimental to their own spiritual growth, which in turn affects
Mm.
their financial growth. Right. So I,
Yep.
I I think from that perspective, identifying a business, in my view, has two angles to it. There's the internal and there's the external perspectives. So with regards to the
Wow.
internal, I always tell people, what do you want to do as a business, and why are you doing that? Is it because you have a skill set that allows you to produce a product or to deliver a service that you can make money off of? Is it because you like a particular sector or subsector, or you have interest in a particular topic? Okay, that's all the internal considerations you need to make. That I am a person, I have abilities, God has endowed me with skills and talent. Can
Wow.
I use these skills and talent then to make money? Can I get
Mm.
economic value for them? Now I would want
Yes.
to throw us back to the parable of the talents in Matthew, right? Where the master gave talents to his servants, and he gave to one five, he gave to one two, he gave to one talent, each according to, right? And these talents are things that we all have. We all have these innate abilities. We all have these inclinations. Certain people, like I talked about languages, certain people have a very good ear for languages, right? Certain people are very good at creating things with their hands. Some people are very good at so I, as a person, right, I've worked for
I'm not
a
sure
number of,
who is
right?
still with us, but if you're on Facebook and you're still,
Some people are very good at so can I go on,
you're
doctor?
still yes, yes, you can go on. Sorry about that.
Some people are no worries at all. So I was saying earlier, I said you need to identify those talents. You need
Yes,
to
go
find
on.
those interests. You need to connect to what you like. You need to connect to what abilities you have. Because when you begin to make money off of your talents, your skills, your abilities, you are on one hand living up to God's potential for your life, but at the same time providing economic value for yourself and your family.
Mm.
So I've seen people who start off businesses because it's a high return on investment, but because they don't even have any interest in that sector, the business dies off over time, because the reason they had started was simply because people were making a lot of money in it. Not because they liked it or enjoyed the work, not because it spoke to their skills or their innate God given abilities, but simply because, oh, it's a high ROI, right? So I think these are internal
Mm.
conversations that people need to have before you even broach the topic of starting a business or identifying a business. The external things are things that you should consider as well. So from the external perspectives, right? I would say that the first thing is information is power. The Bible said it. It said in Hosea about his my people perishing, right, for lack of knowledge. Now you want to start a business, you want to excel at it, but you have very little knowledge or information about the environment you want to create a business in. How do you expect to succeed at the business? Okay, so external considerations such as what is even the business environment like, what is the ecosystem like, what does competition look like, how many people are already doing what you want to do, who are available to fund your business. If you're starting a particular business in a sector, are there people willing to support as funders? Are there people willing to support as customers? Do you have end users? What do those customers need? Can you provide it? Those are all questions we need to ask because they are outside of ourselves. They are questions that only conversation with other people and research and information can solve or can answer. Okay? Assume you start a business in a community. Do you have a strengthened marketing structure that would allow you sell your products? Do you have a distribution channel that already exists? Imagine someone doing a business, producing a product, and then you can't transport the product to where you want to sell it. How do you expect to succeed? So, all of the research you would do, all of the questions you would ask, all of the people you would talk to are those who would give you all of the information that can help you start a business, run it successfully, and then excel at it to the point that we say you have excelled in business. So I think those are just considerations that I usually always end up talking to people about when the questions about identifying or starting a business comes up. Okay. And okay, so let me give another example from the internal versus external perspective. So imagine that I want to start a business and the business is very labor intensive, right? So it involves a
Yeah.
lot of physicality. And in my own honesty, I have looked within myself and I know that I have the interest, I have the likes, I have the skill sets, the talent, and the abilities, but I have a health condition that doesn't allow me to engage directly in this labor intensive business I want to start.
Yeah.
If you do not consider that, you could end up starting a business and then your weakened health state will destroy that business. I don't know whether you get the conversation that it's beyond just your interest or your want. It's you considering every angle and every option. So something that could come up in my perspective is assume then that I employ someone simply to do the labor intensive part of the work. So
Yes.
this is going to be high physical demanded, but then low intellectual work that needs to be done. So I can find ways within my finances to cover that kind of employment. And so I will be starting a new business, but rather than going the route of starting it alone, like most people, I can start it with a staff because I know my health condition requires me to have that staff that will take on the weight of the physical work to allow me focus on the other aspects of the business. So it's an external internal conversation that you need to have back and forth to and fro. Because if you don't have those conversations and honestly answer them, what would happen then
Yeah.
is you could start a business, it would be successful, but it could die off easily. Or you could start a
Mm.
business and the smallest of things would crumble that business. Okay. So I think those are the kind of things you need to consider. So take for instance the external angle to it. Now you live in a community, you live in a community that has a state or is made up of a state, a country, a continent, and the world. These societies have economies that drive them. How do you want to key into a business that allows you economic advantage if you do not know what the economic landscape looks like?
Mm.
So all of these things, I think, so assume that I am in Nigeria and I need to produce a product, but the government has put forth certain policies that make it difficult to import certain raw materials I would need for my product. If I don't know all of this external information or the policies, the processes involved at each step, I would easily make the mistake of starting a business, getting to a point where I need to purchase something and I can't find it. Or I find it and it's at very high costs that then doesn't justify the process of even making the product in the first place. Right? So I think the internal external conversation that we have as individuals with ourselves are things that we need to take into consideration. Because, like I said, God is all for you excelling, but He is all for you being empowered. He's all for you having information. He's all for you being against ignorance. He's all for you leveraging your talents, right? So, if we want to draw business lessons from the parable of the talents, the first thing you would want to identify is the fact that success is a product of hard work, right? The person who utilized his talent made more out of it. The person who kept what he was given made nothing. So there was no excellence or product to celebrate because no work was done on that talent. That talent wasn't put into use. So that's one thing you would pick from that. The second thing is the fact that you, as a person that God created, you have all you need already. Okay, you have all you need already. So the talent is in you, the skills, the abilities. I told somebody, I said one of the greatest talents I believe God has given us as individuals is the ability to learn almost anything we put our minds to. So it may be easier for some and more difficult for others, but trust me, God willing, if you put your hard work into learning something, over time you will learn it. Okay, so yes, we aren't created equally. That's okay. That's God's design. God designed us to be different. He designed us to have different talents. He gave five to one, he gave two, he gave one, right? But that's perfectly okay. But what that should
Mm.
remind you of is that sometimes you may need to collaborate. So, for
Wow.
instance, I have two, you have one, but the two I have is in no way related to the one you have. But I need you to succeed and you need me to succeed. Then collaborate. So
Yeah.
there's place for competition, there's place for collaboration. I will touch on that when I talk about building a successful venture later on. But we are created differently, we have different talents. That shouldn't be a contention in itself. It should be an avenue for collaboration. It should be something that allows us pull together to work together for even more increased good for the world, but also better economic value for ourselves, right? The last thing I
Yes.
want to mention from the parable is, before we go into any other conversation, is that look, you need to learn to be ethical because you are
Mm.
accountable to God. Now, the thing is this, that for entrepreneurship and for businesses, people believe because you are doing it alone, you have to be selfish,
Mm.
right? So people mistake working alone for working for only your own good. And if you remember what I said in the beginning, I said business, in my perspective, is not cash. Business is value exchange. Okay.
Yes.
So what it means is that there may be cases or times where you may not be getting cash directly, but you can get some other form of value. Make sure that when you start a business, you run a business to ensure you are excelling and you are successful by both the world standard and even God's standard. You need to stay ethical. You need to stay as unselfish as possible because it's not about you, it's about the exchange of value. If you take the it's about me, I need to make money, that's when you find people placing inappropriate value on their product. You find people being unreasonable with the delivery of their services. You find people being shady with how they manage their finances or how they push for access to things that will allow them proceed later on. So, for instance, you have people flaunting tax regulations or being just generally unethical. You need to ensure that you stay ethical because, as Christians, as children of God, you are accountable to God. So the master came back and everyone gave an account, right? Saying, you gave me X talent, I made Y talent. You gave me A, I made B. We are accountable to God. So, as entrepreneurs, as people wanting to venture into businesses, as people trying to transition from paid 9 to 5 employment into working for yourself, these are real things you need to take into cognizance because they are very important and they may be the reason why you succeed or fail at the end of the day. Let me pause now in case Dr. Omede has any question or anything to add. I have two other subtopics I would want to discuss later on, so we'll come back to all of this conversation. Thank you very much. Doctor, I think I can hear you also. So we still can't hear you, Dr. Omede. Okay, I think Doctor is trying to check his audio. So before he returns, I would want to just okay, he's
Can
back.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. I had to switch off from the microphone. I don't know what happened. The microphone just wasn't, getting through. So I was saying that I really, really thank God that we did not cancel this conversation, that we decided to persist to hold this session, because you're just dropping some very, very strong points and concepts that I've not even heard people talk about when it comes to how a Christian should even do a business, should do business and all that. And it's really, really interesting. And as you were talking, the emphasis on information, it's quite strong and very, very important. And what came to my mind when you were discussing the impact of knowledge or the impact of information is, how do we go about sourcing this information? What is the best place or the best way to source this information um, when you want to do business? Because I know that this is one of the major areas that people have problem with. They don't know where to look for information about a certain kind of business that they want to go into. And that is the reason why a lot of people go into business without knowing about it. And at the end of the day, they don't succeed in it. So if you can throw some light on how I can go about finding information about my business, or where should I look to when I'm looking for information about a particular business. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much, Doctor. So I think that's a very valid question. And to answer that, I would want to throw back to when you were reading my bio, right? For those who would observe when you're reading the bio, there was a part at the end where we're talking about, oh, he's an ambassador of this, he's a fellow of that,
Yeah.
he's this and that. The reason I leave that component in my biography most times when I do events is because I want to highlight the importance of being a part of a community.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So for most people, yes, we are in an information age right now, and there's so much information flying around, good, bad, as and worse, right? But you need to know the correct places to find information. And
Yeah.
in my perspective, the first place I would always advise people is go to a community. So I would use this particular platform as an example. This
Yes.
is a platform that is dedicated to pushing people to succeed, right? And so if someone wants to get information about succeeding in any aspect of life, this is the first place they should be looking to, right?
Yes.
So that's me just trying to give an example. And so for any business idea or concept, in a sector you plan to work in or start a business in, there already exists communities that are dedicated to those subsectors, right? So, for instance, I will give an example for those of us who may know or may not know. Dr. Ape works around a lot around agriculture, right? And my meeting him was through a community that drives agriculture and food on a global level,
Yes.
right? And this is a community of over 30,000 people from all over the world. If I had not keyed into that community or he had not keyed into that community, I wouldn't know who he is. And him, by virtue of being who he is, has access to information that he can furnish the whole community. But if you stand outside of that community, you then do not have access to information. Simple. So, my first point to people is you are part of a community, use your community, number one. Number two is if you aren't a part of the community, find those communities. So, assume you want to start a business exporting something out of Nigeria, right? Let's assume you are in Nigeria. And to export, you know that there is an export promotion council. You
Yes.
know that there is a society for export Nigerian exporters. You know that so there's so many communities and so many channels to get information. So if you sit on your own side and just wait for information, nothing comes to you. But if you take that step and push to say, I have identified this community, go there physically, make calls, send emails, and find ways to engage with these people so you are able to be in the know of exactly what's happening. So if you join an association for Nigerian exporters, for instance, and they are having a roundtable session or a stakeholders engagement, and you go sitting on that stakeholder engagement and you hear about the regulation, you hear about the policies, you hear about the programs, you hear about government support, you hear about non-governmental organizations partnering with other developmental partners to push export, to drive African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. Knowledge then becomes your second nature by virtue of where you find yourself. So
Mm.
you need to watch the spaces you engage in. You need to watch the communities you join because birds of a feather flock together. You become who you associate with. And the Bible said it clearly, right? Where it said, "Iron sharpeneth iron." If I want to be an excellent business owner or an excellent entrepreneur, I need to know excellent entrepreneurs. I need to be able to
Yes.
share best practices. I need to be able to ask them questions. I need to be able to, yes, like I said earlier, there's a place for competition, but there's also a place for collaboration. Okay, so my first thing is communities, legitimate organizations in terms of NGOs, in terms of government driven conversations and engagements. I would say government because I work for a government, right? It's a political appointment, but I still am part of the whole governance process. And sad as it may seem sometimes, we are still trying to find ways to solve problems, right? So I would say leverage on all of that. The last thing I would want to add about finding information is you have access to the internet. Like as long as I'm as far as I'm concerned, that's like one of the most valuable innovation that has been created in the past few centuries because you literally so we literally are on this call and I am in Nigeria battling my internet connection and Dr. Mede is in Australia right now, right? And some of you are in various parts of the world because of the internet.
Mm.
If not for the internet, we wouldn't be having this session completely. So find ways to leverage what you have at your disposal. I do a lot of mentoring for young people. I talk to youth in secondary school, tertiary institutions, and all of that. And I keep telling them, I say, you have a mobile phone, you have internet on it, and then all you do is watch movies. I watch a lot of movies, right? But beyond that, I know that that internet has value that can be provided to me that would make me a better person, a better Christian, a better business or owner or entrepreneur. So information is everywhere around you on the internet, right? But what
Yes.
kind of information do you need? So you need to be very specific and also very careful of where you get those information. So if I'm looking for information about um, policies, for instance, that Nigerian government has put in place to support MSMEs in the country, because I want to key in as someone who wants to start a business, you need to then begin to go to the government-owned websites and check what is the ease of doing business charter of this state that I'm in saying. What is the business premise registration procedures? What is the Is there a tax codification law that allows me pay a consolidated tax as an MSME or as an entrepreneur? Is there some legal framework that allows me to exist as a business in a specific niche subsector? These are all valuable information you need, but you need to find them, because
mm,
trust me, they are not as readily available as you would think. Because like I said, there's a lot of misinformation, there's a lot of fake news, wrong information mixed in with the correct thing. So you need to be able to find the correct information, digest it, and apply it. Okay, so this would allow me touch into a topic on how do you even build a successful business venture. Right, I had written in my notes when I was creating some form of notes for this conversation that, look, the first thing is to start the business. I said earlier that a lot of people keep talking about starting a business or dreaming about starting a business, but they never start it in the first place. Just start it, okay? Start it small, start it, just start. And to start a business, you would realize that the place of information and research and getting an idea settled on is very important. So do your research, ask your questions, do market surveys, engage people, send out questionnaires. There's digital and virtual surveys you can send out to people. Hey guys, on Facebook, hey, please, I'm trying to do market research about selling cake. If I make cake this way, will you buy it? If I make product X and I deliver it to your door, will you prefer me delivering it to you, or will you prefer coming to me to buy it?
mm,
Questions as simple as that allow you get what the majority of your potential customers would want. So
mm,
assume you then say, I want to sell cake, but because of how easy cake is to be destroyed during transportation, um, there's two ways about it. You, as a potential customer, will you be willing to take the risk to come to my place, pick up the cake yourself, and transport it on your own?
mm.
Bearing in mind that if anything happens to the cake, you've bought it already, so it's out of my hands. Or
Yes.
will you want to sit at home and give me all of the risk? And I make the cake and I transport it to you. If anything happens to it on the way, it's my own fault. So the reason I'm using cake is just recently I helped a friend convey cake to her wedding. So it was one
Mhm.
of the most, it was supposed to be a mundane task, but that turned out to be one
Turned
of the
out to be
most
a very difficult task.
difficult thing I had to do in that whole month, I think, because I never knew it was that fragile. Okay, and I was
Mm.
traveling hours and hours by road to get this cake to her wedding.
Oh my
So
God.
that's why I'm trying to use this simple example. So if you then tell people, okay, these are the two options, these are the reasons,
Mm.
people in Kaduna State may prefer you to allow them come pick it up, because Kaduna has little traffic, or minimal traffic, and some other conditions that may allow them to feel comfortable and confident to bear that risk. Some people in Lagos may prepare you to take the risk and bring it to their homes, because they know Lagos has a lot more traffic and a lot more inconsistencies with road usage and the bustle and hustle that would
Yes.
place the cake at higher risk if it's been transported in Lagos. So they would
Mm.
then say, I want to sit on my chair in my house, you bring it and take the risk. So that's the same business, but then completely different modalities for delivering your product based off of where the business is located. Okay, but you may not know these things if you didn't ask the people that live in those places. So you needed to ask the question to be able to get the answers that allow you to start a business the correct way, that would be an advantage to you, that would be an advantage to your customers, and allow you exchange that value over time. Okay, so when you have the idea, you've done your research, you've asked your questions, the next thing is to implement, right? And when you talk about implementing businesses, the first thing people will tell you is finances. That's a huge, huge, huge conversation. Finances. Where do I get the money? Who gives me the money? What do I have to exchange for the money? Do I have to sell part of my company as equity? Do I have to take on a co-founder? Do I have to, like what? How do I implement it? Okay. This is now the part where you begin to develop a plan. So the plan is going to be informed by the research and the questions you've asked. Okay, because you've gotten those answers. And so when you then create a plan, it allows you then to consider, where do I site my business? Why do I site it there? Who will be my potential customers? Do I have a way to reach them? What is the financial model of my business? Where do I source my raw materials? Do I go out of state to buy it? Do I stay where I am? If it's a service you're providing, where is the best location to sell my service? If you are a voice actor, for instance, that voices cartoons for Cartoon Network, will it pay you more to do a website, or pay you more to create a voices.com account, or to register your services on Fiverr or Upwork? You
Hmm.
need to consider, because that is the plan in itself. And once you have that plan, success is then is then guaranteed more easily for you, because now you can simply implement and watch the success coming. Okay, so plan accordingly, implement that plan. Financing is, you need to think outside the box. Okay, think outside the box. And by outside the box, I mean financing is comes in various forms. So people talk about self-financing when they think about starting businesses. The first thing they think is, oh, let me work from Monday to Thursday, get salary, then for Friday and Saturday I'll devote it to my startup, and or devote it to my business, right? That's good if that
Yeah.
works for you. But it doesn't work for you. Find a way that works for you. For somebody else, the money he gets from work, or she gets from working 8 to 5, is not enough to start up the business they want to start. And when I say not enough, I mean realistically, not financial models to start a business that are not realistic. Like I said, you need to start small. Do not despise the early beginnings. You can always start small and grow over time. The problem with
Yeah.
young people these days, particularly, is we are very impatient, right?
Yeah.
We want quick success, we want quick money, we want high return on investments, not minding the fact that businesses typically that have very high ROIs have also very high risk attached to them. So,
Yeah.
so, so I'll touch on risk later on. But the idea now is this: that when you are implementing, how do you find the money? Do you reach out to investors? Angel investors are simply people who believe your idea so much that they are willing to just give you money for free. Angel investors can be your church, can be members of your church, can be people in that work in NGOs, can be the NGOs themselves. They can be family members, they can be friends, they can be colleagues at work. I've had a conversation with a lady in Lagos who was doing so well setting up events for her organization, despite the fact that her work in the office had nothing to do with events. Her boss got so impressed that he gave her money to go start up an events company in Lagos.
Wow.
Like, he was that
Wow.
impressed by the quality she was delivering. So this was
Wow.
something
Your
she
gift.
had a passion for. Yes, this was something she had a
Your
passion
gift
for. She was
makes
good
way
at.
for you.
So she leveraged that, and that got her an angel investment, because he didn't. It wasn't a loan. It was, take money. I believe your vision. I believe you have what it takes. Go do the exploits. Okay. So that's angel investment. Some people would also want to consider grants. So I know right now, Nigerians and people in Africa are so focused on the Tony Elumelu Foundation grant, right? For those of you who are interested in the grant, please speak to Dr. Ape. He has gotten that grant before, I believe, right? So with the Tony Elumelu Foundation grant, it's simply a way that young people or people in Africa can access $5,000 to start a business,
Yeah.
right? And this is not venture fund or money in exchange for equity. This is just a grant.
Yes.
And so most times I tell people, you have to work on the internal parts, so that when the external begins to manifest and you get those monies, or you get access to that financing, you get the support, you get everything, you are able to use it properly.
Yeah.
So when I talk about the secrets of excelling in business, we'll talk about financial management and all of that. But literally, it's find a way to fund your business that doesn't allow you tunnel too far deep into debt. Now, I don't have a problem with
Can I
debt. If you
can
have,
I can I come in?
yes,
Can I come in before you continue?
no, please go
Now,
ahead.
one of the problems that people have with business is that they always think that when you talk about capital for starting business, that it's money. Their idea about what can I use to start business is money. They forget that their talents, their potentials, their skills are all capital. Just for example, this young lady that we just mentioned now, I believe that the capital for her business was her skills, her talents that she showcased and she put to use while working with this organization. It was that act of making use of the talent and skills and potential she had, doing it for free. So sometimes your initial investment would be things you did for people for free. And I think when you do it, people will see what you're doing and then see your result, and they'll be able to say, let me support you a little bit. But most people will just want to wait, sit down until they have that particular money, before they can, venture into any business, But if you have a good idea, if you have, if you come up with good business ideas, and you're able to put your talents to use as little as you can and be dedicated and be committed to it, you will be surprised at how people will come to support what you're doing. And that's what Albert is trying to say in terms of angel investors, because angel investors will not just come and give you money. They need to see that you are doing something. Okay, so whether you have money or not, if you have skills, you have talent, you have potentials, you need to go ahead and put those skills and talents to work. It is when you begin to do that that angel investors can come and give to you to further support you. So instead of sitting down and saying, I don't have money to start, I don't have capital to start, the capital you have is you and the people around you. The skills, the talent, the potentials you have are all capital that God has given to you. Putting them to use will open doors for more angel investors to come and support, whatever it is that you're doing. I just wanted to drop that in, as you're saying, before I forget.
Thank you very much, Doctor. So, yes, of course, and sometimes these angels may not even be people you know, right?
Yeah.
Which is why the value of integrity, the value of efficiency, of delivering quality of service or quality in terms of product is very important, because you do not know who is even watching or who is
Yes.
taking note of what you do. So I think that is also very important. Thank you very much, Doctor. So, like I was
Yeah.
saying,
Thank
when
you.
starting also, yeah, there are two other things I want to mention when starting a business. The first is that you need to know um, what the what kind of registrations and documentations are needed for your business. So when I was talking about
Yes.
research and information, this is where you then use it. So the research and information has value for your plan, your financing. Do you want to go get a loan at a bank? Loans are awesome. They are good as long as you have a plan to repay them in a way that doesn't cripple you financially, right? You could sell part of your company for venture capital funds to invest in your business. You could go about it in several ways. Please feel free to Google and read up on financial models for raising funds in businesses and startups. There are a lot of ways to go about it, right? But then the information is also important when you come to the registrations and documentations for your business. In certain developing countries, people take that for granted, and I'll tell you why it's a risky thing to take them for granted. So, on one hand, you have things like business registrations, right? So, for instance, you may need to register your product, you may need to get certifications, you may need to get tax documents sorted, you may need to get some form of legal representation for your business, right? If you skimp on all of these parts, on all of these things, the impact later on can be very disastrous for your business.
Yeah.
And I'll give you an example. So there's a fund that was created here in Kaduna as a collaboration between the government, the Kaduna State Government, the Bank of Industry, and the Kaduna Business School. And it's a 1 billion naira fund that allows
Wow.
MSMEs and startups to access financing for their businesses.
Mm.
But as a way of getting access to that finance, you need to submit certain documentations. So most times you find people start businesses and then try to access financing, and then when they are asked for these things, they then don't have them and begin to run from post A to B. But if at the initial you took note of all of the information you were supposed to, and you put in the work to get all of these registrations, certifications, documentations done, you stand a higher chance of not just even financing to access financing, but also validity of your business to your potential customers. So assume I come with a product and I say, this is certified, and I come with another product and this is not certified. For most people who know the value of certification processes, they would prefer going what is certified because it's safer, it's secure, it's there's a validation to it that
Mm.
allows their product to do better in a company, right? Or for instance, a service. Let's assume you put up a service on Fiverr, right, or Upwork, and you say I do transcription of information. So I listen to things and I write out the text for you. But then person A has 5 reviews from previous people that they've worked with that said this
Yes.
person is amazing to work with. I loved working with them. And then person B has no review. If you are a person coming to employ one of them to do a transcription job for you, who would you most likely work with? You most likely work with the person that has reviews, because this is
Yes.
validation that other people or other companies have given for their work, right? So those
Mhm.
things are very important. The value of documenting things, the value of registering and having all of your certifications and having all of your taxes in order, having all of your legal structures. Later on, if someone is suing you, you're not running to go get a lawyer to start from scratch. You already have someone available who knows your business, knows what you do, knows how you do it, enough to be able to represent you if a court case comes up. Okay, so those are kind of things that you have to preempt. At the beginning, they may be expensive to start, but the value over time is very, very important for you as an entrepreneur or as someone who wants to excel in a business. The last thing is about data and record keeping. So most people do not value information, like I said. So it's one thing to access information of other people, but it's another thing to document your own information. Okay,
Mm.
so assume that I have a product and I have a process to make that product. Is that process documented? If I am sick and unable to make the product, can I take my operating manual or standard operating procedure document and give somebody and say, make this product for me, and the person makes it to the same quality I was making it before to be able to sell even while I'm indisposed? So you then
Wow.
find people making the mistake of their business depending solely on them as individuals. So assume this
Mm.
person travels out of the country, or assume this person has to go for a conference. It means that business is cancelled for that duration the person is not available. But if
Yes.
you have processes documented, if you have data, if you have information, you know what period of the month people buy your product. You know which kind of people typically want your services. So you can create targeted ads online. You can reach out to very specific community to say, I offer this service. Will you employ me? You can say, I'm a consultant. Over the past 3 years, I've been working with these kinds of sectors. It means that if you approach people in those sectors and you call the names of your previous clients, they are more easily going to accept you as a consultant here than if you go compete in another sector with someone else who is an expert in that separate sector. Okay, so information is very, very key because it helps you then develop and grow. Because if you're
Yeah.
saying you want to start a business and succeed at it, there needs to be growth. You can't be stagnant. God does not like stagnation. Remember the person with the one talent that
Yes.
buried his talent and kept it and returned it the way it was given to him. So God in his infinite mercy does not like stagnation and misuse or mismanagement. So please notice the importance of information, record keeping, data for your business, because it allows you grow. When, for instance, someone comes and says, I want to invest as an angel investor, show me your revenue structure for the past 2 years. Show me your accounts. How much have you been making? Because the amount you've been making will determine how much I give you as investment.
Mm.
Okay, so all of these things are things you need to, because it's not when somebody comes to you and say, I have a grant to give you, that's why you then begin to run to try to get how much product you sold in 2020. You may have forgotten,
Mm.
as as is expected, because time has passed. But if you had done something as simple as creating an Excel sheet and tracking all of the purchases and orders and all of the services and clients you've worked for and what they've said about you when you worked for them, it gives you an added advantage when you want to then push beyond where you are to get to a bigger level in your business, or to excel at that business. So I think these are just some points around building a venture or a business that is successful and that allows you to impact not just yourself. As I keep saying, business is not just about you, not just yourself or the finances, but also the quality of value you deliver to the persons who are your customers or your users, or the people who champion your products, even as marketers or distributors and all of that. Okay. So please and please, this is just me trying to highlight things around identifying a business in the first place, building one that is then successful, and I would then share secrets to excelling after Dr. Omedes goes on to talk about something else for some brief minutes.
Well, I would say I would just allow you to continue to run down the conversation, and then we can, you know, take comments or questions from the audience if there is any. Um, but something just came into my mind. I was just thinking, the place of business in fulfilling purpose or something like that. Is it possible to do business and have your purpose fulfilled in that particular business that you are doing? I don't know if you understand me or get what I'm trying to say.
Yes. Yes. I do
Can
get it.
you?
The answer to this question you just asked is in something I wanted to talk about when I was talking about the secrets to excelling in business. So
Okay.
on one hand, I'll talk of three separate things. The first was supposed to be about the trends, right? If you want to succeed or excel in a business, you need to be aware, like I said, of the external things, right? What is even the trend? So assume that I want to create, or I want to start selling a particular product. Do I even know what the market requires at that time? Is what I want to sell in trend, or is even needed or necessary? And this is where the fulfilling purpose through business comes up. That, like I said, business is about delivering value, right? And for most human beings, purpose and a purposeful life can be gotten when you deliver value to other persons apart from yourself. So it's
Hmm.
about contributing to the life of someone else positively. It's about
Mm.
supporting someone else, helping someone else. So on one hand, you can do that directly through the business you run, even then going a step further to do that beyond the business you run. So I'm talking about
Mm.
probably using the finances you make from a business and using it to impact the life of someone else. So maybe it's corporate social responsibility projects, or donations to places and people who need the money and things like that. But I would want to talk about the value you can place in people's life directly from running your business. So
Yes.
I always advise people that when you want to start a business, tie your business to a specific problem. Okay, so solve a problem for people, and you will not just be running a business for the cash, but you will be
Yes.
running a business that delivers purpose to your life through
Yes.
delivering value to the life of others. Okay, so if, for instance, I have identified that there's a problem in my community and I create a product to tackle that problem, on one hand, I can have the value of saying, oh, I've raised XYZ amount of money in 1 month. But on the other hand, I can beat my chest and thank God for the grace to be able to help ABC number of people solve the problem that they were facing.
Mm.
So that's where the purposeful life and value from business can be derived. That if you tie your business or your product, your service, or what have you, to a specific problem, you will then become a person that not just makes money, but that makes money and delivers social good and value that is needed to people who are in desperate need of it. And so that now gives you the sense of fulfillment, the sense of accomplishment, the gratitude for being able to affect the life of others. Okay, so like I said, the business for purpose is in two folds. It's the value you provide, which is what I keep hammering on. The
Yes.
value you provide, is it something that without it someone may even die from certain things? So I'll use an example, right? There's this company that started up in Nigeria that delivers health commodities using drone technology, right? So
Yeah.
for places in Nigeria, for instance, that are hard to reach because of poor road networks and a whole lot of other factors, people would typically die from the inability to access things like blood for transfusion, vaccines for children, and things like that. But now, with a company that comes up to say, we have drone technology, we would work with you to deliver the blood and all of the health commodities to hard to reach regions. I'm bringing this as an example because Kaduna State Government worked on a partnership with them to facilitate now the use of those drones to deliver health commodities to certain locations, right? Now, the owner of that business would sit down and say, I have raised XYZ as cash, but because of using my service and my product, a number of children have gotten access to vaccines that ordinarily they wouldn't have been able to access, or people have gotten access to critical health commodities like blood, for instance. People would go into labor and may need blood transfusions, and then blood access may be difficult. But this product has gotten, or this service has gotten people access to blood. So that is direct purpose derived from giving a service or
Yeah.
starting a business.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think thinking about it from that perspective, you don't have to go so big as using drones. Something as simple as something else could be
Yes.
something that would change someone else's life. And so when you then come at it from that perspective, you know now that you wake up every day, and you starting up a restaurant is not just about cooking and making money, but about getting certain
Exactly.
people who ordinarily may not have access to nutritious food,
Exactly.
for instance. It gives
Yeah.
them access to nutritious food. Okay, so I
Yeah.
think from that perspective, it gives us an idea about how we can derive purpose from just running a business simply, or assume that you tell yourself, okay, look, I am making um products from I there was a company I once contracted to buy glasses from. They make they call them Ninja wood shop. So they use wood to make glasses, right? And when you bring that up, typically as someone who is very passionate about climate change, I had concerns, right? Because why are you using wood to make glasses? It was concerning. But when I went
Mm.
deeper into their business model and I realized that they were using wood from trees that typically should be cut off. I never knew that trees could age beyond a certain level where they needed to be cut off, right? But
Mm.
people from the forestry subsector in agriculture will tell you there are times that certain trees need to be cut down. Now, beyond that alone, is this organization plants a number of trees for every tree that they use to make their glasses.
Wow.
And so for them now, it's value they're delivering for the climate, value they're delivering for the society and environment. But if you just take them at face value to say you're cutting down trees to make glasses, you would typically not buy their products and you would have issues with the business. But they were thoughtful enough to develop multi layers within their model that allows them to compensate for removing trees that ordinarily were supposed. In fact, there are some trees we plant that are not even supposed to be planted in certain locations. I never knew that until I went into research about tree planting. Okay, there are certain trees we plant that shouldn't, based on the land topography, based on the type of soil in the location, based on a lot of factors. There are trees that shouldn't even exist in certain places. But we don't know that in some cases, and they have experts that determine and identify these trees, cut them down, the ones that are old, decaying, the ones that shouldn't be where they are, and then they use them to make the glasses.
Mm.
right? So I think from that perspective, you could see the value that can be derived in exchanging value as a business. Apologies for my dog in the background. I'm so sorry about that. But that's just me trying to explain about how you can get purpose and live a fulfilled life from doing business, that you can provide value to human beings, to the community you live in, to the environment, to solving climate change, to tackling food insecurity, to solving insecurity. Like literally, there are so many ways you can start creative businesses that would help you have peace of mind and
Yes.
fulfillment from doing your business. So I think that's something I would want to focus on. But then to
Mm.
round off, before we go into questions, that for secrets to excelling in businesses, I said number one, know your trends. Number two, um, 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 solve problems for people, and you would
Mm.
make an excel. You would make a lot of money and excel beyond even finances in your business. Number three is identify the gaps. So I mentioned earlier that there's competition and collaboration within business environments, right? So if there are people that provide two services, but there's a gap that exists between those two services, how can you, as a potential business owner, position yourself to fill that gap? Those are things that can allow you excel. So, like I used the example with cake. So many people make cake, but very few people will take the pain to deliver the cake, for instance. Okay. So you need to identify that small gap that will give you what people in business call a competitive advantage or a comparative advantage over your competition. So that when
Mm.
three people are doing similar things, you do it differently in a way that allows you to appeal to a lot more people as customers. Okay, so identify gaps that allow you to compete favorably, collaborate where you need to collaborate, always sharpen your skills and improve yourself. And you do that by engaging with people that can sharpen you, connecting to communities that can do that as well. Iron sharpeneth iron, like the Bible says. You need to be in those spaces. You need to speak to those people. You need to shun ignorance, okay? Because if you start a business and it crumbles, you cannot justify the failure of your business on ignorance, because you
Wow.
literally had access to information, you just were not
Mm.
dedicated enough to find it, or you were not diligent enough to apply the information you found. So some people find information, but they don't implement it. They don't use that information. You need to be able to find information, use the information, and get as much value from that. Okay. You need to know how to manage money. So people will say, "Oh, if I just have $20,000, my business will just be a success." You've not managed $200. You want to get $20,000 and manage it. How possible is that? Okay. So you need to learn how to manage even the little money you have now, little money in terms of the injection of funds into your business, the money you make as revenue, what your profit margins are, what do you do with the profit, how do you spend it, how do you negotiate for your raw materials, where do you access the raw materials, do you go for quality over quantity, do you go for cheap versus, like, literally these are all considerations you need to make that allow you manage your money properly. Okay. Beyond money management, so I've mentioned the trends, the solving of problems, the identification of gaps. You need to shun ignorance. You need to sharpen your skills and continue learning. People say education is for life, right? Learning never ends. Continuous improvement and development. You learn how to do your product in a certain way. Is there a cheaper way to make your product? Learn that as well and implement it. So you drop down your cost of production. Is there an easier way or a cheaper way to send your product to your customers? Leverage that as well. Okay. Manage your money well. How much do you spend? How much do you make? What do you do with it? Simple. That's management. How much do you spend? How much do you make? What do you do with what you make? And with those three things, you've managed your money. Okay. Then other thing to take note of that allows you as a secret, anyway, it's not a secret, but I need to remind you of is you need to develop people skills. So I have met people who are genuinely by nature not very sociable.
Hmm.
It can go either ways. Some people can be antisocial or have poor social skills and do terribly at business. And some people can find ways to be good at business despite their poor skills or despite their poor people skills. With businesses, you would interact with people. You need to be a person that is open-minded. You need to be a person that doesn't judge others. You need to be a person that has long suffering, because trust me, you will meet clients that will challenge your patience. You will meet customers that would literally make you want to bash your head against the wall. But you need the skills to be able to manage all of those. So your people skills. If you are not good at it, can you get someone who is, like I said, collaborate? I've met a person who was very bad at one-on-one engagements with customers, and what the person did was they took their business completely off physical shop and just set up an e-shop shopping platform. The
Wow.
person, he was like, I don't have patience to go back and forth with people to say, so my product costs this amount. How many do you need? How do I send it to you? Blah 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 blah. The person doesn't have that ability to converse for extended periods of time. Trust me, if you're running a business, you know that there's some people you will talk to for days before they agree to even buy your product. And he said, look, I'm taking it off this physical one-on-one thing and I'm setting up a shopping um, 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 page on Jumia, on Konga, on any of these other platforms. And literally, you buy my product without having to engage with me on WhatsApp or over a phone conversation. Or you don't have to come to a physical shop to meet me and buy my product. You could just see what you want, select your color, select your size, select every other detail, and place it in your cart and order it, and I send it to you. So you need to know yourself enough. You need to, if your business needs people skills, work on it if you don't have it. If you have it, good for you, but you need to ensure that you are able to manage your contacts, your network, the people you engage with, and all of that. You need to keep very detailed records, be organized. It's very easy to confuse information or misplace information if you're not organized with how you keep the information, okay? How you keep or record your data. Do you have physical copies? Do you have digital copies on your laptop? Do you have copies backed up to the cloud? Do you have, these are all ways. So assume, for instance, that your entire client list is on your laptop and your laptop crashes. You've lost all your clients' details. You don't have their phone numbers, you don't have their emails, you don't have anything. Assume that you keep a physical record of books, and then your child, as a woman, picks the book and then while you were cooking, throws it into oil.
Hmm.
And you know what ink and oil does, right? The entire ink on the pages will just wash off. So you
Yeah.
can't read the numbers, you can't read the names, you can't read anything. How then do you continue your business? So these are things to take very careful note of. That look, be organized, keep detailed records, and keep them well. Another thing to note as a secret I usually tell people is you should understand risk and rewards. Okay. So, like I said, businesses that have very high return on investments are very risky by nature. So, you need to understand those risks. You need to be able to honestly tell yourself, Albert, what are the risks of starting this business? Risk A, B, C. How do I mitigate those risks? You plan. And then assume that I still find a way to fall into some of these risks. How do I come out of it? So, do you have contingency plans that allow you to weather the tough storms? Okay, because you will need to make sacrifices, but you need to be aware of the sacrifices. You need to be aware of these risks before you start it. And so most times you find that certain people, particularly in the younger generations, would come to their parents and say, I want to start a business. And parents would be against it completely because they say, oh, business is very risky. I want to get a stable job, work as a
Yeah.
from 8 to 5. And those are considerations from their perspective based on the risk. But believe me, if you are a person that has done your research correctly and you can sit down a sensible adult and explain step by step your plan, your ways of accessing financing, managing your financing, getting your customers, what are the risks involved, how you've made plans to mitigate those risks, and how you will get out of it if situations arise that dumps you into those risks. Trust me, any sensible adult, parent, or guardian would understand your position. But when you come and you say, I want to start a business, and people beyond your generation are not in support, it's probably because you haven't given them reason enough to support you. Okay? Which boils
You
back
are
down to,
look.
yeah,
You
go ahead.
are what you just said now is like debunking a major notion that is out there. I hear a lot of people say that everybody cannot be a business person. So, from what you've said now, it seems that you don't totally agree with that notion that
No,
everybody
no,
cannot be a
so so
business.
so so so, so so with that conversation, right, about everyone being a business person, you remember
Yeah.
that my own definition of business is about value.
Yes.
Okay, so when people use that word, I think what they typically refer to is selling products for cash.
Okay.
Most times, if you ask people when they say that statement, oh, not everybody can be a businessman. Ask the person, what is the definition of a businessman? That's where you get the position that the person is coming from. So from my
Yeah.
perspective, that business is value for value.
Yes.
Almost anybody can decide to be a businessman because in your
So
nature,
long as you
by
have a
virtue,
value to deliver.
exactly, by the virtue of the skills, talents, and abilities God has endowed in us, you
Yes.
can always make money off almost anything you can do in this world.
I agree.
Literally, you can make money from almost anything. Okay, so I said I watch movies a lot, right? And I watch non-English movies, and because of that, I've gotten so used to subtitles.
Mm.
Okay, so used to subtitles. And then I was so shocked that on Fiverr, people get paid to read subtitles and extract them by typing them. Literally, Dr. Omede, someone sits down, watches something, reads the subtitle, and types it out and gets paid
Yeah.
for doing that.
Yeah.
Someone sits in a meeting and translates English to French during a business negotiation and gets paid to do that.
I'm not sure. Sorry for cutting you. I'm not sure how many of us who are on this call know what Fiverr is, or know what Upwork is, or know what freelancer is. Please, please, after this session, go and Google Fiverr, go and Google Upwork, go and Google freelancer. There are many of them out there. Sign up and start making money with your gift, talent, and potential. I want to beg you, please. Continue, Mr. Albert. Thank you very much. You're releasing some powerful insights.
You're welcome, sir. Thank you very much. So from that perspective of business being value for value, it means almost everybody can sell something. Okay? Almost anybody can sell something. Now, it may differ what the duration of the selling is. So assume that someone is a very gifted writer and the person sells their writing skills for a short-term 3-hour job. And then somebody else gets employed in a company and is a writer for that company working an 8 to 5 job. In a way, they are selling the very same thing. They're selling their writing skills. It's just that somebody is getting paid for selling their skills on a shorter term. Somebody's getting paid for
Yes,
selling their skills on a longer term. So in a way,
yes.
that's why I always want to think of business as a value for
Wow,
value thing that transcends just a marketplace or a space for give me A and I give you 10 naira or
wow.
$20. It's
I
it
love this.
business as a concept and work has evolved far beyond that. So please and please, we all have something we can sell, whether long term, short term, whether product, service, whether skills, abilities. It doesn't matter. We all have something we can sell, but it's different now. So it's a choice thing also, which is where I come from. That it's one thing for all of us to have abilities to be business persons, but it's another thing for us to decide to be business persons. So I never force
Wow,
anybody to be a business person because it's a choice. It's a
wow.
conscious choice.
Mm.
So that choice being made is saying, look, I have assessed myself based off my personality, the fact that I do not want XYZ, I would rather not sell this skill on a short term. I'd rather do it on a long term and find a paid employment. That's perfectly okay. Like I said,
Wow.
we're not created equal, but it's okay to not be equal. But we need to be honest with ourselves that as an individual that God has created, you have skills, you have talents, you have abilities that have been naturally endowed or that have been picked up over time, given his gift to learn things. Okay? He gave us a gift to learn. We can learn. So all of these things are things you can get into business with. You can make things and sell. You can deliver services and get paid. You can do value for value transactions, short term, long term, physically, virtually, it doesn't matter. Okay, so
Wow.
that's the perspective I take to business, that it's all encompassing and more expanded than people typically believe it to be. So celebrate your small wins is something that is very important as a secret to excelling in business. So you find
Mm.
people have very high expectations for their organization or business, that when small wins come, they are not they don't even notice it sometimes. And then because they don't notice it, then they don't celebrate it. So you
Wow.
meet with people that will talk so negatively about their business, and you're watching and you're like, but you've done this, I can see this. But to that person, they are not moving. So you
Yes.
need to learn about the risks and the sacrifices you would make. You also need to learn to celebrate those small wins that you make. You need to be creative. You need to stay consistent. So one
Yes.
thing with business is that consistency is very key. So assume that you start a business and you sell a particular product. So let's assume where you live, there's a lot of business activity in terms of like companies and organizations that work full time in offices. And then you start a lunch delivery service for workers in their offices. And then Monday they call you, you deliver. Tuesday they call you, you deliver. Wednesday they call you and you don't produce any food. Then Thursday, you produce food and you chase them down to buy it. Then Friday, they call you and you're nowhere to be found.
Mm.
How do you expect to retain customers? So they usually we talk about during in business terminology, they talk about customer acquisition and customer retention. Is one
Yes.
thing for you to get new customers, is another thing for you to retain those customers to become returning customers. Okay, so on one hand, it's a lot more easy sometimes to get new customers than retaining, because if your service is not to a point that appeals to this person, they would move on to another provider. Okay, so consistency is key. Being present, giving it your all. If you've started work at a quality level, stay on that level or go higher. Never drop your quality, never drop your value, and all of that. So it's about exchange and the pleasure people derive from the receiving of your value. Okay, so something else that is very, very important, and I would mention this as a last thing, is that we should always learn to check our progress periodically. So most times you start a business with a plan, but you keep running on that plan and you never take a look back to see whether that plan has worked or it hasn't worked, or what you need to do better to make it work more. And that's why, as a person, I love user-centered design in terms of like product creation, business management, and all of that. That it allows you to take periodic look backwards to say, I started with this plan. Has it
Can
worked?
you, Mr. Albert? That's,
Yes, sir.
there are some very strong business words you've used so far in this meeting,
Okay.
and
Okay.
I hope that they'll go back and anyone who's going to listen again, go back and pick those words and get to find it, because really excelling in business is dependent on some of these keywords you're picking up. For example, talking about user-centered design, can you throw a bit more light on what
On
does it
that.
mean to start a business from the approach of a user-centered design?
Okay.
And
Okay.
then you go back to
Okay.
what you were saying. Just
Okay.
throw some light around it so that people can
No, no, no,
understand it,
no,
and then
no worries. No worries. That's perfectly okay. So in user-centered design, right?
yes,
User-centered design simply is a concept that allows us as potential entrepreneurs or product developers to view building a product or delivering a service from the perspective of the user, number
yeah,
one, such that, like I keep saying, business is not about you as a business owner. Okay, so if you are creating a product for people in a certain region or people within a certain age bracket to use, that may be a completely different demography from you. Okay, so you could be a 40-year-old man creating a product for 23-year-old youth, male and females. Okay, and in the real sense of it, you are not the best person to answer certain questions about that product because
Yeah.
you do not live the life they live and you do not understand things from their perspective. So that then brings into call the concept of user-centered design. So you are designing things, either a business, a product, from the perspective of the user, so
Yeah.
that it appeals to them enough for them to purchase it. So,
Yeah.
for instance, people would always come from the perspective of saying, do your surveys, ask your questions, use those answers to create your product or delivery of service, and then test it out. If it works, fine. If it doesn't work, you go back and rebuild again. Okay, so that's the whole idea with user-centered design, that it's about your customers, your users. Will they buy what you are offering at that exact price point, at that exact period of time you are selling? So assume you are selling winter jackets in summer.
Yeah.
You love jackets so much that you want to sell winter jackets in summer. Who will buy winter jackets in summer? But if you had simply considered the people that would use the jackets, you would know that most people would prefer buying winter jackets when winter is about to start,
Yes.
right? Or assume that you want to sell. So in Nigeria, there's this common soft drink called Zobo, right? I don't know whether you're familiar with it, Mr. Ape, or the
Yes.
people on
Yes.
call.
Yes.
Is a red drink made from a
I know
particular
it.
plant, right? And the issue with it is that it stains clothes and it hardly comes off when it stains a cloth. So I once was
Mhm.
talking to somebody who was starting a business, and she said she wanted to make Zobo, and she had identified that there were a lot of banks where she lived, so she would deliver Zobo to these bankers for their lunch break. And then I asked her a question. I said, "Have you even asked these bankers whether they will buy Zobo for lunch?" Because I know Zobo stains clothes. Bankers are about appearance because their job demands it. And so I
Yes.
wouldn't wear a white shirt and come to work, buy your Zobo, and have it stain my shirt, and then I have problem with work the entire day. And she went out and asked, people, and would you believe that they preferred another drink compared to the Zobo she wanted to make? Because the drink is even more preferred, but beyond that, the value she would deliver will not affect their work if it turns bad. So the drink they wanted was a drink in northern Nigeria called kunu. When it pours on your clothes, even if it dries, it just takes the color of your actual clothes. Like it doesn't
Yes.
stand out. And it's
Yes.
washable with water. It's
Yes.
washable with water. Right? That was what they ended up preferring. Because I asked her, I said, do a list of different drinks, ask them to tick which one they would want to have for lunch. And the data showed completely different numbers. So if she had just sat down because she loved Zobo and made Zobo and took to the banks, she may not
Yeah.
make the actual sales. But then
Use
also
use
the value of user-centered design, again, something to mention now is this: that because she had reached out to bankers in their offices to ask about the drink they prefer, when she started making the kunu, I told her to go to specifically those bankers she had given those forms to and start selling to them. They were already aware that she wanted to make drinks. So they were literally low hanging fruits for her to pick in terms of
Yes.
customers. So rather than having to go start talking to new people to say, please come and buy my kunu, she could easily just go to say, oh, you remember that survey I gave you where I asked which drink you would prefer? You said you would prefer kunu. Now I have kunu here. Will you buy? So the research even helps you from a user-centered perspective, even helps you with potential customers. So that's why the value is very, very important for people
These are their
considering.
top people skills. With
Okay, so the last thing I wanted to mention is this: please be objective when you review your business. Okay, so you had a plan, you
business
executed the plan.
interact with people.
Has that worked out? You need to be very honest with yourself. You need to be very objective. If it hasn't worked out, why didn't it work out? And what can you do
people.
to
You
solve
need
that?
to account for people.
So I think that's the last thing I would want to mention. And at this point, I would stop because I've talked for too long and find out if there's any questions or any comments from our participants or from Dr. Ape. Please go right ahead right now. Thank you very much for having me.
Hello, can you
I could hear you earlier.
hear me?
Yes, I can. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Mr. Albert. Can we give Mr. Albert a round of applause if you're still with me on this session? Let's give Mr. Albert a virtual hand clap. Really enjoyed today's session. I've really enjoyed today's session. Can you join me just appreciate Mr. Albert with a virtual hand clap before we go back to your questions and comments and any other thing that we need to do to finish up today? All right. Thank you, everybody. So, Mr. Albert, really a great session. I'll try to see if there's anyone with a question in the comment, both on Facebook and on Emit. So if you are here on Emit, you can type in your question using the chat. There's a chat option that you can see there. If you have any question, you can just type it in, and I'll pick it from there. Let me see if there is any question on Facebook. So I'll just wait a little bit, and then I'll look for questions and comments. Thank you very much, Vincent, for always showing up for our discussion. If you have any question, please drop it in the comment section, and I'll pick it up from there, whether you're on Facebook or on Emit or on YouTube. I think it's like there was a lag in my speech, so some people are just giving you the claps now. So we'll just wait to see if there is any question on Facebook and here as well. While we wait, I have one question, which will be my last question for today. How do you suggest we deal with failures in business as believers, as Christians? Having listened to all these things, I'm able to identify my why, both externally and internally. I'm able to, I know what I want. I follow all the secrets that you've, marshaled out to excelling in business, and still I experience failure. In that situation, what would be your best advice to a Christian? How should we deal with failure in businesses if we encounter one? If we can take that, then I'll continue to look for any other questions on Facebook. So.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Omede. So when you were asking that question, right, I was remembering a passage in Deuteronomy that was talking about if you hearken your voice unto yourself unto the voice of the Lord your God will set you high above all the nations of the earth. And then it went on to talk about a lot of blessings for the children of God, right? But the reality of it sometimes is that you try all you might, but these things just don't work out sometimes. So my own approach to it from a biblical or a Christian point of view is you need to find out why. And in finding out why, there's two approaches to it. There's the why from your own analysis and assessment, but there's the why from God's perspective. Okay? So,
Yes.
so, 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 from God's perspective, it could be a thing of timing. It could be a thing of misalignment. It could be a thing of you shouldn't be in this, you should be somewhere else. Okay? And so some of these things could happen as a result, or some of these things could cause the failure that one would experience or might experience. But like I keep saying, I believe that stumble and fall, it's okay. What matters
Mm.
is how you get back up. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, how you get back up is this, that you need to, on one hand, realign to God's purpose for your life.
Wow.
So the exact same way that people do other things in their life that is out of God's purpose, marry spouses they are not supposed to, or they were not directed to marry, go to institutions they were not supposed to go to, study courses that God didn't wish them to study, a whole lot of other things like that. That's the very same thing that happens even in business. And it's very easy
Mm.
to find yourself in that misalignment, because you may either be going off of the trends, or being interested in it because so many other people are, or you find out that, in fact, there was a time I was in a church in some region, and a lot of people usually would do the same thing at the same period. And then I had to ask myself that question. I was like, okay, so is this a thing of the herd mentality, or is it genuinely God giving leading for everyone to push towards the same direction at the same time? Right? So these are all things we constantly need to consider. That is it me hearing God's direction, or God's direction for other people echoing to me? Because it happens to Christians sometimes. So I would say most times for these things is find out from an assessment, why didn't it work? Is it something you did? Is it something you could do better? Because if all of the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted and it still didn't work out, then sit down and have a genuine conversation with God and ask a why. Because if you cannot sort it on that level, trust me, no matter what you do, it then wouldn't just work. Then also, I want to mention another perspective, right? That there are some people that will tell you something. They would say, if you've never failed in a business before, I am not investing in you. I don't know if you've heard that from investors before. Now, the reason for that is this, that most people, particularly in the business environment, see failure as a learning experience, which is what will bring me to a conversation or a word. You said when I use business terminology, I should explain. So there's a word called iteration. Iteration,
Yes.
Iteration, right? Iteration
Yes.
in business simply means you are constantly modifying a product or a methodology of service delivery. So you try version A, you put it in the market and sell, you review, is it okay? If it's not okay, you modify that version to version B and you sell again. And the whole process or concept of iteration began becoming mainstream when people started talking about internet related softwares or digital solutions, right? So for instance, Facebook, when Facebook came out, there were different versions of it, right? So you see Facebook v something, version this, version that. Operating systems for your mobile phones would have version 1, version 2, iOS, Android versions, BlackBerry versions. Literally, these versions are these organizations saying the first thing we tried worked, but there were issues with it, or we identified challenges and we've worked on that and made a new version. Okay, so iteration is very important in business, and you could iterate from a product perspective or from a business perspective. So you create a product, it's not working as well, you modify and you change. Or you created a company or a business and it just wasn't working out the way you wanted, and then you tweak the business model, tweak the members of the business, your partners, your customer, you changed a few things and you try it again. If it works out, fine. If it doesn't work out, you keep iterating. Now, the iteration process is important, but you need to know when to stop iterating. That's when to give up and move on to something else. Okay? Which is why for a Christian, it's very important to be conscious of that voice from God, because what it does is it allows you to spend as little energy and time and resources on iterations that will not work out. Okay, so that is the advantage that you have as a Christian. You could pray about it, have conversations with God, and you get a leading that allows you escape from that wastage of money, of time, of energy, over and over again to keep working on the same thing when it was never going to work out in the first place. So I think those are ways to consider failure from a Christian perspective, that on one hand, it happens. On another hand, when it happens, why did it happen? Can you make it not happen if you try a different version? Or are you even supposed to be doing what you're doing at that time? Because if you weren't supposed to do that in the first place, then it wouldn't work either way. Okay. So I think those are kind of ways to handle failure, rejection, and all of the problems that may arise. Because, like I said, your why has to be very concrete enough. Because when these challenges come, God and your why are the reasons why you would scale through it.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether that helps. Yeah, I don't know whether that helps.
Yes, perfectly. You know, in fact, I wrote down something here when you were talking about purpose and business, and I said that building a business around your purpose will continue to inspire you daily. So yeah, I believe that for success in business or whenever.
You are muted, doctor.
Okay. Hello. Can you hear me now? Sorry, I just
Yes,
switched.
I can hear you. Welcome back.
Yeah, I just had to switch my camera. So I was saying that you made total sense because when you were talking about purpose and business, I mentioned that I wrote down here that building a business around your purpose will inspire you daily, you know, to wake up and keep pursuing your business and goals and business and targets and all that. So yeah, whenever we encounter any challenge in terms of failing in business, it's very important that we go back to our purpose, the reason why we started that particular business and all that, and that will help us to get fired up again and keep pushing. Um, so I don't have any other question here. I don't know if anyone has a question. If you have a question, I'll just give you 1 more minute to ask a question either on Facebook or on Airmeet, and you can put it in the comment if you're on Airmeet because you can't speak. It's the same thing on Facebook as well, so that we can take it up. All right. So, in the absence of any question, I can't find any question. What we'll do is, if there is any question later on, Albert, on Facebook in the group, um, I will pass it across to you, and then we can share it with anybody who asks the question. But at the
Okay.
moment, I can't see any question on both
No, no,
platforms. So,
no
I really
worries.
want to.
I have a final statement though to remind people. I don't know if you
Okay.
can permit me to do.
Yeah.
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 So
Sure.
so I just remembered Jeremiah 29:11, right? That the Bible is saying, "For I know the plans I have for you," declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, to give you a future and a hope, right? So plans to prosper you, plans to allow you excel, plans to allow you do as well as you should. Okay. And this is me just tying up all of the conversation to say, look, once you function within God's plan, one way or the other, even if it may seem like you are not excelling in the cash financial aspect of it, like most people would expect, given the expanded definition of business, you may be delivering or getting value that goes beyond just the money. Okay. So please and please always stay within that plan, because God has it for your prosperity and for your own excellence. So I think that was just the final thing I wanted to remind us before we leave, and then just pray that we all continue to push and work hard, diligently, consistently, and give our best to all of what we do, including our businesses. Thank you very much for the invitation, Doctor.
Thank you very much, Albert. I truly, truly enjoyed this session. And the replay will be on for a while on Airmeet, and of course, it's in the Facebook group. It's also on my personal page and LifeExcel page and every other places as well, including the YouTube channel. So we'll keep it there for anybody who wants to have a rewatch or a replay of the session. But I've truly been inspired and blessed by everything you've shared today, and I'm taking them, seriously to apply to my own businesses as well. You will end up with a prayer for everybody who is on this session, asking God to bless their businesses or inspire them with an idea that can be turned into businesses. So, but before you do that, I'd like to remind everybody that Success Convert is a monthly session at LifeExcel Resource Center where we bring um, experts, people who have ideas, who have knowledge, who have experience in a particular topic to come and share with us and inspire us to succeed in our own personal lives. And like I said at the beginning, this year we are focusing on all-round excellence. So we are looking at excellence in every aspect of our lives. Last month we looked at excelling in finance, and Albert mentioned a lot of things that we talked about actually in that particular session today during a session, building on what we discussed in that particular session. So next month, July, we're going to be talking about excelling in character, and we'll have a special guest who will be talking to us on that particular topic. Character is very important. We've talked about finances, we've talked about business, relationship, vision, purpose, and all that we've discussed since the beginning of this year. But if you don't have a character, if you're not a person of character, then there's not going to be any kind of excellence in your life at all in any of these areas. So I want to just mention that we're going to do the publicity also as well, starting from this coming week. So I want to encourage everyone to also be part of that and help us share the materials. If you're not in our Facebook group, please look for LifeExcel Resource Center on Facebook and try to join our Facebook group. We also have a YouTube channel which you can like as well, so that you can keep abreast with our activities and all the things that we're doing. But I want to especially thank you for being part of today's session, and I pray that God will bless and keep you until we meet again next time. So for the last thing that I want to do today, I want to hand over back to Albert and ask him to say a word of prayers over our businesses and over our ideas for businesses. Albert, over to you.
Thank you very much. Let's pray. In Jesus' name,
Amen.
our Father and our God, we thank you for today's session. We thank you for all who have been present. We thank you for the conversations we've had. We thank you for the fact that you would bring to our remembrance all of what we've heard at the very rightest of time that we would need them in Jesus' name. Father, we
Amen.
commit all of our business ventures into your hands. We commit the people who create them. We commit the people who are considering starting their businesses. Father, we pray that you would continue to give them wisdom. You would continue to grant them grace and favor in the sights of men as they continue to carry on their research, build their products, fine tune their service delivery models, and do every other thing that is required of them to establish a business, run it successfully, and even go on to excel at it in Jesus' name. Father, your plans for them are plans of good, plans to give them a future, plans to give them hope. Father, may you bring those plans to fruition in the name of Jesus. That Father, Lord God Almighty, they will not run businesses that would bring success simply as the world sees success, but they would run businesses successfully based on your definition of success, because they would reach the lives of people, they would contribute to their communities, they would help the environment, they would, Father, go ahead to be a light that would bless even others to start up their own business ventures and be a source of encouragement to those who already run theirs in the name of Jesus. We pray that, Father, you would take us through this weekend in your own grace. You would allow us to continue to live our lives in the greatest of your favors and mercy in the name of Jesus. Thank you for answered prayers. As we depart, may you depart with us and may you continue to help LifeExcel Resource Center grow in quantity, in quality, and even in the value they are able to provide to the lives of people all over the world in the name of Jesus. Thank you for answered prayers, for in Jesus' name we have prayed.
Amen. Amen. Thank you very much, Albert. So blessed to have you tonight. Thanks everyone for joining. That's where we come to the end of today's session. So see you next month, and also in the group where we share other things with you as well. God bless you and have a beautiful weekend. Mr.
Okay,
Albert,
bye.
Everyone.
Thank
let's
you
meet
very
at the
much.
backstage.
No
Yeah.
problem. No problem.
Yeah.